Hello everybody, welcome to my studio today. I'm excited to paint a new design for you. It was so much fun for me to create. It's got such vibrant colors, something a little bit different as well for me that I just thoroughly enjoyed creating this. Let's take a look at it. We've got this gorgeous fish and I've titled him Fish Face. Look at the vibrancy in this fish, the colors of it. Now I use DecoArt Traditions paints for this. It's a little bit more pigmented paint, but you can use DecoArt Americana paints or any paints that you have actually will work just fine. This one was super fun. Let me try and get it up close without the glare from the lights. Look at that fish. He is so cute. That is a face that only a mother would love. I think we're going to have a great time painting this one. Lots of techniques in this one. So let's grab our paints and supplies and let's paint up a fish face. Alright, I'm working on a 9 by 12 canvas panel and I've lightly sanded mine. That's just something that I like to do. It's not necessary, but I like to give my canvases a little bit smoother finish. So I've grabbed a 3/4 inch angle brush. You can get a flat brush as well to do this. The colors I have out on my palette are cerulean blue, ultramarine blue, titanium white, and warm white. Today I am using DecoArt Traditions paints. Absolutely love this paint. But you can use the other DecoArt product, the DecoArt Americana paints. It converts very easily. They do have an ultramarine blue, a warm white, and a titanium white. The cerulean blue is the one that you would want to they don't have one that's titled cerulean blue. Like open water would be a good color choice for cerulean blue. So we are going to, I'm going to put a little water on my palette. I don't have my spray bottle handy. When I take a break later, maybe I'll grab my spare one. I've got mine packed for a convention, so I don't have it out here. But I was able to get a little bit of water over there. I've already transferred on just the basic line of our fish here. If you could see that. Just a line where I can tell where I need to go. And we're just going to start picking up some paint here. Mixing and blending and getting varying colors and working the background in. I have a little bit of water in my brush so that I can move this paint easily. I'm going to try and retain the shape of my fish. I might have a little bit too much water in my brush here. And just make this beautiful blue oceany background. I'm going to grab a little bit of warm white. Now where this back fin is back here, we can go through that with our blue a little bit into it because the fin is kind of see-through right there. We can see the ocean colors. I want some more lighter stuff in here. So just grab your colors as you feel like you want to use them in your background because it's not going to be wrong whatever you do as long as we've got a blue in our background. And I definitely need some different color over here. But the background is bright and bold. I definitely still have, I feel like, way too much water in my brush. Get some of that out. I'm going to grab both of my light colors and I'm just going to mix all 4 of these colors together. I want a little bit more ultramarine blue and come down here. So it's just a mixing of any or all of the colors that are on your palette. I'm going to put a little more ultramarine blue out because I want to have some darkness down here at the bottom. I might put out a little bit of black so I can darken that. So let's grab some carbon black. I hope this is an open tube. I don't think it is. Nope. So let me open that up and get us some paint out. I don't need a lot of black, so I'm not going to put a lot out there. Just want to darken this blue a little bit. For down here at the bottom. And depending on what paint you're using, and if you've thinned it too much, like I feel like I've thinned mine a little bit too much, you might want to quickly dry it and apply a second coat. But I definitely want to keep the shape of the fish. We don't want any of this blue into the fish. Our fish is a bright yellow color. Turn this so I can get into this little area here with the tip of this brush. Alright, there we go. So just get your background the color that you want, and that's still very wet up there, so I am not going to attempt to put another layer on that till that dries. Alright, let me blend this out up here. Wipe some of the paint out of my brush. I felt like it was just piled in there. So yeah, any kind of blue oceany color is going to be great. Alright, so I am going to get mine dry and see if I can apply another little layer, especially on this side where I started. I had way too much water in my brush. So I'll see if I can get another smooth layer on this edge, and we will begin working on the fish. We want to get our background dry so we don't stick our hands into it, would be best. But it should be a beautiful bright blue, just a varying of colors with those 5 colors that we have right here: cerulean blue, ultramarine blue, titanium white, warm white, and a little bit of black so that we can darken it down here. I think I may come along and darken a little bit over here, but it's super wet, so I'm going to have to let it dry. Okay, my background is pretty dry. Let me move these papers out of the way. We are going to add a little bit more stuff into the background. So I've got an old business card. You can use an old credit card, a piece of thin mat board, anything that has a pretty firm side but it's not too thick. Okay, so we're going to run this through our warm white. And I'm just going to do like this, run it across it, and then tap it because I don't want a ton of paint on here. And we're just going to come in here and lay this in here in different ways and create some kind of stuff that's kind of going on in the background. I mean, this is all going to fade back in there, so you don't have to worry too much about it. We'll be putting grasses and stuff in here, but we want to see a little bit of this. If you feel like it's getting too dark, we can wash over it with some blue and tone it down. You could even pick up a little bit of blue and blend it in and make it a little bit of a blue tone here. And just have some fun with it. It shouldn't take you too long to put a few of these like little streak things in here. You know, you can take the edge and draw them out and give them a little bit more of a roughness into the background. But again, once we add our grasses in here, all of this is going to fade. So we won't even see a lot of this. but we want a little bit of it in the background. This one here I feel like got a little bit bright, so I'm going to grab some blue and kind of tone that down a little bit. Okay. So once we put our grasses in, we may want to come back in and add some of this on top here. So we can certainly do that. But that gives a little fun stuff to the background that will fade into the background. Okay, I'm going to wipe this card off in case I want to use it later. I can use any of the other sides to work the background some more if we need to. Alright, I'm going to put out on my palette some Hands of Yellow. This is Hands of Yellow Medium, actually. It's a little bit darker than the Hands of Yellow. Now I want to add either warm white or Snow White to it because I want to make it a little bit more opaque, and yellow is just not opaque, so I'm going to pull some down here. I don't want to get blue in it because then it will be green. I'm going to take some warm white and make this a little bit more opaque, and we're going to paint our fish in with this color. Go right over your eye. Well, the eye is mostly yellow, so we're just going to paint the whole thing in. Hands of Yellow Medium, and I added some warm white. Now if you need to put your line drawing back on, you can do that, and I would recommend using some white graphite so that you can see the lines a little bit easier if you do decide to put your pattern back on and put those lines in. Mix up a little bit more here. And my colors may vary as I mix it. That's perfectly fine. Nothing in nature is perfect and exactly the same color. I've also packed my rotating easel, so I'm rotating this by hand today. Ooh, had a little bit of green in there. Still have some green in my brush. I didn't rinse it, or blue in my brush. I didn't rinse it out very good. Alright, just work on getting your shape nice. Keeping that paint nice and smooth on your canvas. No thick ridges or bumps or lumps. If you see one, smooth it out so we don't have that in here. Okay, now this might be too big of a brush to try this with, but I'm going to give it a shot. This little thing right here is a little bit longer. And it's kind of rounded right there. And then this is the bottom lip. Grab a little drop of water so my paint will move a little easier. I'm probably embellishing the lips a little bit more than what they are, but I have no idea what kind of fish this is. I just thought it was a pretty fish. You know, if you ever get the chance to go to the Bahamas or anywhere where it's got just the clearest blue waters, and do some snorkeling, oh my gosh, I highly recommend it because you get to see some of the most beautiful fish. I want to make sure I don't see a lot of that blue, even though we're going to be putting layers of paint on here. So that looks pretty good. We've got him painted in with our yellow mix, Hands of Yellow Medium and warm white. So now if you need your pattern, you can put your pattern lines on. Again, do them very lightly because this is a yellow fish, so we don't want it to get overpowered. You don't make your lines too dark because all the layers going on here are going to be nice light layers, and we don't want those graphite lines to be in there. So if you do transfer your pattern, be sure and erase them back to where you can't see them. Make sure your paint is completely dry before you do that, because if it's not, the graphite will set immediately into your paint, and then it's in there, and the only thing you can do is cover it up with paint. So I'm going to get mine dry and get a few lines on here. Alright, I want to do a little bit of the greenery around the fish before we work on the fish, and then we may have some coming up over it. Over here I want to do like an orangey yellow white kind of color. So I've got vermilion, dairy light yellow. I'm going to put a little bit more Hansa yellow medium, and then we've got our white up there that we can use, or we could put out some more warm white, whatever's going to work for you. But I want to start creating some really fun stuff here. So I'm going to grab some white first and some yellow, maybe a little bit of dairy light. And I'm just using a 1/2 inch flat brush, and I want to kind of get the idea of where some of these are going. So I'm just using the chisel edge of the brush and letting it kind of skim across here, creating some stuff for us to put some leaves on. And we can do as little or as much as we want here. This is just telling us where we're going to be going, so we don't have to make it so, you know, rigid. So this brush might be a little bit too big for my leaves that I want to put on here. So I'm going to rinse it out and grab a smaller brush. I'm going to grab an 8. This is a chisel brush, and it's a chisel brush because the bristles are shorter than a flat brush, a little bit shorter. I don't think they're any wider, they're just shorter. So I'm going to use this one, and I'm going to start with some darker colors down here, work my way up to some lighter, and then really light ones on top. So I'm going to take some orange and some dairy light and mix them together. And I'm going to have to mix some yellow in there, or maybe even some white, because it's not opaque enough. So let's just come in here and dab some leaves, and we'll be making this pretty dense down in here. So some of those lines that we put in here, we won't end up seeing them at all. So this will be our first layer. We'll come back with another layer to really brighten this up. So I'm basically just doing some dabbing in here. I really want this dense down in here, so just a tapping dab. That's kind of all you need to do. I'm going to bring a little bit of this up in here. We're mostly going to keep this light up there, but we want to bring up some of that orange. Alright, down a little bit more of that brighter vermilion on here. A little bit more brightness on top. We'll be coming in with a little bit brighter on top of this, but that's going to get us a nice beginning layer right here. So now I'm going to wipe off the excess paint out of my brush. I don't want to rinse it because I want to dirty brush. I'm going to get the dairy light and the yellow, and this will make a little bit of a lighter color. And again, this is not opaque. These colors here that I'm using are not opaque, so I don't want to pick up a lot of that orange. So again, just dab it and be loose with it. Just putting some, it'll be a little bit less dense as you get up to the top. So you'll still probably see the viney stuff a little bit, which is great. Gives it a little bit more dimension. Okay, so that was just with the yellows. We're going to brighten that up. because with that blue it's kind of turning a little bit green. So let's grab some white and mix some white in here, a little bit more of our Hansa yellow, maybe a little bit more of the Dairy Light. Just mix a nice yellow that you like. And then we're just going to come in here and tap some of this on top of all this. Try not to do exactly like you did the previous layer, because you want it to be varied, not completely the same. A little bit more white, and I'm going to bring some of this down here. Grabbed a little bit of orange in the mix there, just a tiny little bit. Since we're coming down on the orange, I want to make sure that we mix a little bit of that orange in there to get a light layer on top here. I've got a lot of paint loaded into my brush and trying not to go exactly where I went before. It's not always the easiest thing to say. I'm going to wipe my brush out. I want to get some more white and some more of this yellow, a little bit lighter. And we'll put a little brighter layer on here all the way down with the white and the yellow mixed together into a dirty brush. Okay? So it's just a layer upon a layer, but never covering completely the previous layer that you did. Okay? I hope that makes sense. So I want to clean my brush out. I'm going to grab some of the yellow. I don't think I have any blues that are still wet here. I want to get a little bit darker orange and put some of this down here. And just give it a little bit of depth. Just, I'm not sure that looked good. That kind of muddied it up. So I'm going to go back into my orange and tap that back on top, because that doesn't look very good. So I don't think I'm going to be encouraging you to do that. But I do need to cover it up now. It got just too much. We do want it darker down here at the bottom section, and then gradually getting lighter as it goes to the top. So I washed my brush out now. Okay, I want to pick up some white by itself that's not mixed with any yellow, and tap a little bit off. You can use an old kind of scruffy type brush for this as well. Whatever, I like to use the short bristles, because I can get this nice little dabbing effect on here. So we're just going to create some little highlight ones on here with some white. Our paint is still wet, so if you pick up a little bit and your dabs are not white, then you might want to go clean your brush. And see, I picked up some orange there. Get a little bit more white. I'll put a little bit over here. Okay, so that should take care of that. That is super easy bush, underwater bush to make. And again, if you get it too dark, you want it to push back. This one's a little bit more forward, but if you want it to push back, all you have to do is let it dry completely. Then take one of your blues and make it as sheer as you can with some water. So you'll have mostly water, the tiny bit of paint, because you're just tinting the water, and wash that over it. So that will push it a little bit more into the background. All right, how you doing? Plant is not the focal point, so remember that, okay? Fish is going to be the focal point. All right, let's do a quick plant over here. I want this one to be super bright. So let's take some medium green, and we'll use a little bit of our yellow and a little bit of our white. And I'm going to go back to my 1/2 inch flat, and I'm going to mix some yellow, some Dairy Light yellow. No, this is Hansa yellow medium, and some white, Let's make this really pretty bright green here. And we're just going to take a line. I'm on the chisel edge again, and go up and around and make a vine coming up there. I'm going to have one coming up here and maybe one going up this way. I kind of drew it that direction, but I think I'm going to bring it up that way. Okay, I'm going to wipe a little bit out of my brush, but I'm going to try and use this brush. I might have to go to a different brush. I got online to look at different greenery, ocean plants. They all just were so different. So I'm going to push my brush down and just pull some little leaf things on here. I don't even know if this is right. I might bring one out here and put some like that. Just have a little fun with it. Be a little bit creative and don't get caught in a lot of the details. I'm getting a little bit bigger as I come down the branch or stem, I guess. And keep picking up brush. My brush is very well loaded. So let's put some over here on this one. And there we go. We've got a nice greenery started there. I'll remove these other lines that I didn't use later. I want that to dry, and then we're going to, well, I might try and do it while it's still wet. That might blend a little bit better. Let's try some teal green. And you can mix some teal green just by taking your ultramarine blue and your green here, and you should mix pretty close to a teal green. I'm going to side load with my teal green here into my dirty brush, so that means it's not going to be solid teal. I'm going to wipe a little bit of paint out. It's not going to be solid teal because it's mixing with that green color that we made. What I want to do with it is take it and put a little bit at, just from that corner, a little bit at the base of our green leaves or whatever they are, and just give them a little bit of depth. Grab a little drop of water here and let my paint move a little bit more. I'm going to put this one behind that. This is where you get to play around, be a little creative with where your color goes. I'm putting it all at the base, but sometimes I'm just going along one side to maybe let it look like it is behind. This one's definitely on top. Okay, so we got a nice little shadow on there, or shading on there. I'm going to also chisel edge this. I'm going to try to along our stem and give it some darkness. Oh, I forgot to shade this one. Let's get these all shaded up. And right here where it's next to that fish. So just pull a little bit of that dark green along one edge. Okay. I'll wash my brush out. We're going to put a little bit of lightness on top of them now. I'm going to mix some yellow and white. I think I might go down to my chisel brush here. So I just want to make a light yellow. Actually, might want to make it a little bit soft green. So a teeny tiny little bit of our medium green. And we're going to put this, let me zoom you in just a little bit. We're going to put this at the tips. It's going to brighten up these little leaves. So it was the Hansa Yellow Medium, Titanium White, and and a tiny, tiny little bit of that medium green. Okay. Don't want to fill the whole leaf. We still want to see that main green color. Try to mix enough to do all of them, but if you don't and your next mix comes out different, it's going to be gorgeous because, like I said, nothing in nature is perfect. So we don't need to try and make everything perfect. A little bit of water. You figure out which one's on top. And just have a little fun. Okay, I also want to take some of this. Let me mix a little bit more of this. Teeny tiny little bit of green. And I want to chisel edge a little bit on our stem. And I hope you've been on camera because I zoomed in and I'm always terrible about getting off camera when I zoom in. So hopefully you've been able to see it. Wide angle back out, and there's our little greenery. Super, super fast to do. Crazy super fast. Okay? Alright, so if you don't have lines transferred onto your fish, now is a good time to do that and get them on there. I think I will go ahead and transfer some of mine on there. If you try and transfer them with white and you can't see them, go ahead and put them on with some gray, but erase it back. Make sure your paint is completely dry, erase it back, and you'll have some nice light lines to work with. Alright, so I've got my pattern back on here. The areas that I want to transfer on are these areas through here that come all the way down. These are the light colored areas, and so it's going to be important to know exactly where those go. So I'm just going to lightly, and your shapes don't have to be perfect. Don't try to make them perfect in any way. This is just an idea of where things are going to go. Okay? And these are all lighter colors up through here. So anywhere where we've got some lightness, we kind of want to have that area drawn in. And as you can see, when I drew it on here, nothing is perfect at all. So let's take a look. And my lines aren't coming on too dark. That's good. I don't even know if you can see them. So that's exactly what I want. So I'm going to go finish up all the way down, and then we will. And I also want to make sure that I get this line through here, because this shows where my dark area will be. So I know how far to bring it out. Alright, I think I've got all the lines I need. All these little bitty tiny dots and stuff, because they come all the way up into here. I didn't draw them all on. And there's, you know, a bunch down in here. We don't need to put those on. We're just going to apply those with paint. But I kind of wanted to let you know that those are some different color areas on there. Okay, so mine looks like this. I have a couple of lines that are a little bit darker than what I want them to be. So I'm going to take my eraser and very lightly erase them back, just so that I can see them where I need to go. Because once we put paint over them, they are set in our project. So it's important to not have them very dark. I can see my eye that I put on earlier because the paint set that graphite into the project, so it's very visible. Alright. Just want to get them where I can see them. Make sure you don't brush your eraser shavings. I know I say this on all my videos, but make sure you don't brush them into your paint. Brush them away from your paint, or pick up your project and brush them over a trash can. Normally when I'm just painting for myself, I just pick it up and brush it over a trash can. Alright. So if you can see, if yours is a little bit darker than mine, don't worry about it. We're going to put some other layers on top of this before we paint those areas in. So the paints that we put on there is going to push those graphite lines back in there a little bit, so we won't have to worry about it so much. Alright, let's, I'm going to go ahead and use some of the orange that I have on here already. Well, let's see, that's vermilion. I think I might want to get a brighter orange. Paranone orange. I don't know how to say it. Some of these paint colors are like, I feel like I have to have some kind of education in order to pronounce the names of them, but I'll just do the best I can. Alright, I'm taking some water here and pulling a little bit of this out and making a wash of color here. I'm going to do it with that color. I'm going to do a little bit with the vermilion. I want mostly water. And we might bring a little bit of red in here. So let's see the red. Depending on how dark you want it, these were really the only two reds I had. Naphthal Red and quinacridone violet. Well, I think the violet is not going to work on this project, so we're going to try the Naphthal Red. So I'm going to put just a tiny bit of it out, and again I want to thin a little bit of that down. So grab some water, thin, thin, thin. That's a very vibrant color, so plenty of water in that one. Okay, we're going to pull from these washes of color and apply it onto our project. I think I also might get some Dairy Light Yellow, and if I can find a spot, make a wash of that. My water is kind of green, so let's see if I can find some clean water here. I don't know. There we go. And we'll thin some of that. Alright. So now we're going to go to our project and paint. I have first loaded in my brush, because I just mixed it, some Dairy Light Yellow. So we're just going to start just applying this in here in a loose, random way. We get some more, a little more water. You'll probably have to mix as you go, because it will start drying out probably before you can use it all. And I'm going to mix a tiny little bit of the vermilion in there. I want some orangey colors here, so I'm going to go into my vermilion and put some orange in through here, and a little bit coming up through here. This will all be very, very light on here once it dries, because it's mostly water. So I'm going to get some more Dairy Light Yellow. Let me mix a little bit more water in here. I want a little bit more of this color throughout. This is Dairy Light Yellow, okay? We're going to add another color on top of this once this dries, but for now we just want to add some of these colors that we've done in here. So this is our Paranone orange. A little bit more water in here. And we're going to add this into some places. I'm not worried so much about brush strokes or anything like that, because this is all going to just settle into this fish and be gorgeous. So you can just pick up colors, whatever colors you want, but please make sure you've got water mixed in so it stays transparent. Try to stay off the background there. And then just work your way around your fish. Really, whatever. We're going to save the red for, I had too much paint in my brush there, or watery stuff, so I had to wipe it off so I could move that a little bit. are going to keep getting out into the background. Keep a damp brush for that if you need to. Don't be sloppy like me. Alright, I'm going to take a little bit of the red. Wash my brush out because I want this to be not so dark. And we're going to put some red through here. Ooh, that's a lot of red. Wipe my brush off. That's okay. We need it a little darker down here. We definitely want to see the red on here, and it'll get a little bit shorter as it goes up. We're going to put a little bit of this red up here. And bring some of it down, and we'll put just a tint of it, or not, down here, which might be a little bit impossible since our paint is super, super wet. Alright, I'm going to grab some of my yellow, which is the Hansa Yellow Medium, and put a little bit of this in here so that any places that look a little bit too rough, we can gently blend. And now, because it's so wet and it's starting to dry, you just want to do a little bit of patting. Okay, that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to let it dry because it's going to just mess it up if we continue to work that really wet washes of color. But again, you've got vermilion, you've got Pernod orange, you've got Naphthal red, you've got some Hansa Yellow Medium, and some Dairy Light yellow. All washes on here of those colors just around and throughout. We're keeping the oranges down here and the reds, the oranges and the reds up here, some lighter oranges through here, a little bit darker oranges through here. I think I put a little bit of red in there as well. I do want to put a little bit around the eye, so I'm going to see if I can get that in there without lifting any paint. So we want a little bit of that around the eye. Okay, so we need to let that get completely dry. Okay, and it has to be dry, dry, dry for our next layer that we're going to put on here. Okay, we are in the super ugly stages of this fish. Seriously, super, super ugly stages. So don't panic, don't worry, we're going to get there. And I have to tell you that when you're doing this step right here, you're going to want to overwork it. But I'd like to just stress to put the paint down, the watery paint, and let it be. Because overworking it will be your enemy, okay? All right, so we're going to spatter onto our fish, okay? I don't want this spatter to be in the background, but I do want it to be on my fish. So you could tape off all the way around this fish, but I'm not going to do that. I am going to take a large brush and get it wet and have it ready, okay? That's to remove water in the background. You can also grab a baby wipe and have that handy to remove, but you can't rub too hard or you remove your background paint. So one of those two things to have handy, okay? I'm going to use a long rake brush. This is a filbert rake brush. A flat rake brush will do. This just happens to be the one that I like to use whenever I do spattering. So I'm going to load it with some water, and I'm going to go into my burnt sienna here. I've got burnt sienna, vermilion, and I've added a new color, Hansa Yellow. It's a brighter yellow. I don't know if it's going to work. It might be too opaque. It's a little bit more opaque. So I want to thin this down, okay? And then I'm going to grab a brush, and I'm going to begin spattering, maybe a little bit too much moisture in there, on my fish. And some areas I want to have a lot, like up here on the nose and right through here. We're going to do this again after we get our white areas painted in, but we want to start here. I'm going to take a minute to remove some spots. Make sure you've got some clean water, that will be helpful. Alright, make sure my brush is loaded with water, and then we're going to continue spattering. And like I said, we'll be doing this a couple of times on here. But for now, we want to get it mostly, it's mostly going to be like through here. Not so much back here because we can't really see the texture of the fish back here. So it's going to be mostly along the front and a little bit down here. But mostly up through these areas, okay? And we'll be spattering with another color here too, because it looks like I'm going to need a little bit darker color. So I'm going to get my spatters off now. It's so easy to do because the paint is very, very wet. And so we can work those spatters right off with a wet brush with clean water. I'm not going to worry if they're in my plant back here because that doesn't really matter. But I don't really want to see spatters in my water. Okay, so I'm going to rinse this brush out. We're going to be using it again later. So keep it handy. Whatever brush you're spattering with, you can spatter with a flat brush. Any kind of brush can do spattering. So don't feel like you have to have a rake brush to do it. Really, any kind of brush can do it. Spattering is not my favorite thing to do. Splattering, spattering, however you say it. I say it without the L. I looked it up and both ways means the exact same thing. So basically, so I say spatter, but most everybody else says splatter. So however you say it, just go with it. Just go with it. I've got a lot of water right there. I'm going to have to let that dry. Okay. Let me see if I can mop it up a little bit, because I don't want it to lift my paint. Alrighty. Okay, let's add a little bit more bright yellow on here. I don't know if the Hansa yellow, or yeah, Hansa yellow is going to be what I want, but I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to thin some down like we did with all the other colors. Let's use some clean water to do this, to thin it down. And I want to start putting some of this through here. If it doesn't show up, then it's probably not going to be bright enough of a yellow. I just want to, right through here I want a little bit more, but mostly let's just dab some in here. I'm going to get a little bit more in this water, less opaque, and just dab some. And up through here. I really think this color, I didn't think it would be this transparent, but it's pretty transparent. Put a little bit above the eye. This is just a little tapping. I could mix some white with it, but I'm not quite ready to do that. But I might have to, because this yellow really kind of needs to stay on top here. Let's put a little bit of white out. Now when I mix this, I'm going to mix such a small amount of white in here. Little tiny bit at a time. Tap my brush on my paper towel, and oh yeah, that's going to be great. So we're going to use the Hansa yellow with just a small amount of white in it, and we're just going to create some irregular stuff on our fish. So can you see that little bit of irregular light stuff there? Right down through here. So we're just going to do that. This is going to lead us up to our white. So we're just going to just dab, just little dabs, little dabs. You can go to a smaller brush, but it's just little dabs, little dibby dabs. Little dabs. Don't get carried away. We want some up here. Okay, a little bit through here. This is just that yellow, hands of yellow with a little bit of white. Next, this is just the next layer. We did the spattering. Now we're adding this layer. Keep it very nice and loose. And I do not have tons of paint in my brush, but I'm going to do it a few times to make sure that this is kind of on top. I just mixed a little bit more. I've got too much in my brush, so I'm tapping it off onto my paper towel. That is key. If you have a lot of paint in your brush, you don't want to. So now you're probably seeing that a little bit more. So we've got some nice layers coming in here. So we started out with just the yellow. We mixed a little bit of white in there to start creating some lighter yellow, and then we added a little bit more white in there. Okay, to get these little bit brighter areas, and I'm just tapping, dabbing. It's leaving such a small amount of paint on there. Okay, but it should be enough that you can see that texture in the background or in the body of the fish. Okay, when we add some of our other elements in here, hopefully that will make that pop out a little bit, so that it shows up a little bit more. If not, we'll come back and apply another layer of that on there. Right, let's paint in our white areas. I'm going to have to get my line drawing over here. A couple of my lines I can't see anymore, so I'm going to lay it in front of me so I can see where I'm going. I mean, if mine doesn't come out exactly like my drawing, that's okay. So we want to start painting in these little squiggly areas that we put on here with some white. If you're going to thin your paint, make sure you thin it with clean water. We're just going to put the first coat on so we can get them in here for placement. We're going to go and do some other stuff around them and then come back and paint a second coat on here. So I can't really see this one at all. Looks like it goes in through here. I could put my pattern line back on, but I don't really want to do that. I'm just trying to figure out what areas are painted and what areas are not. But really, there's not going to be a right or a wrong here. Just as long as you've got some white on here, it will be fine. So I'm just using a round brush. I'm basically just getting in some of the shape here, because these are the lines that I can't see at all anymore. And again, don't try and make this perfect. This is supposed to be very interesting. And then these lines all kind of come down like this. cover up my graphite lines here. This kind of comes around the eye here. And then okay, can you kind of see how it's starting to form here? You want to, maybe I shouldn't have erased mine back quite so far, but what's done is done. Okay, this one comes up real thin to the face there, and I've got it way too thick. So I'm going to remove some. It's very thin back here. I probably added some extra lines on mine, but that's okay. Still have a few lines to put up here. Some little dabs. Alright, I've got one here. Definitely cannot see my lines here. So I am just winging it. Looking at my line drawing, see how I kind of went. And going from there, because yeah, I think I could have left my lines a little bit darker. So if you're watching and not painting along and you do decide to paint this, go ahead and leave your lines a little bit darker. Now there's some lines up here that will be light as well. This is just kind of for placement right now, because we will definitely have to come back in and paint these in. Oh, didn't have you on camera for that. Sorry about that. So just up here, I'm just kind of creating some lines that are coming from there. Got an area here. And you see I'm doing this very loosely because I don't want perfect lines. I mean, that is important. Don't make perfect lines. Okay? We just want a little placement for all this stuff. Okay, I think I've got everything up through here. I feel like something needs to go in here, even though I can't see any lines. I'm going to add something in here, so I want you to do that. If you feel like you've got a big open space, go ahead and put some in there. Although I'm sure it will be fine with an open space, so don't stress out if you've got an open space and you don't know what to do with it. So some of these spots that I'm putting in down here will eventually be a soft yellow, but we'll go ahead and undercoat them with some white so they'll stand on top a little bit more when we put some yellow over them. Okay, right through here we're going to have some yellow. So all that dabbing of yellow, if this is a good thing if you can't see it, go ahead and dab some white on there, and then when we put some yellow on top of it, they will stand out a little bit more. So you can dab all the way to the back fin back here. There's some rough little dabbing with the white, okay? Because a lot of this we're going to make yellow. So again, I cannot see my lines. I have no idea where they go. I can see this one because this was one that I drew pretty dark. So we got other colors to add in here, so we'll be fixing anything that doesn't look very fixable. Alright, so one here. Again, I'm not seeing my lines very well, so I am just kind of drawing from my line drawing, seeing what I see and going from there. Take this all the way to the edge and then bring it back up. We'll fill this in. And then we'll have some here. And a couple little spots up there. And a few lines down here. Again, this is going to be dark, so we can come back and put our lines on top. So I think we're, oh, that's the lip. I don't want to paint the lip white. Getting carried away there. Okay, I'm going to put just a little bit of this around the eye. I'm going to put yellow around the eye, a brighter yellow, but I want some of this white to make that bright yellow pop. And I'm also going to put a line here, so when I put that brighter yellow in, it's going to pop more. Okay, so just a few lines there in the eye, and we're looking pretty good. That's our first layer of white on there, and it's looking really good so far. So we've got a few more colors to add to this one before we get it to where we want it to be. So don't worry about how it's looking now. It's going to be fabulous. I promise. It's going to be fabulous. All right, we're going to start putting a little bit more color within the body. I do see a couple of spots that I missed, so I'm going to grab some white and put a little bit of that color on there and dry that real quick. Some of my lines I didn't get covered up there, so let me give that a quick dry. Okay, we're going to start adding a little bit more excuse me, color texture in the body. I want it to be, I don't know how to say how I want it to be. Well, I'm going to switch to a, this is actually a wave angle, but if you have a wave flat, which I do have one somewhere, here it is. I'm going to use the flat one. Now you don't have to have a wave brush to do this, you can just do it with a flat brush. So I'm going to pull a little bit of paint out with some water. This is the burnt sienna, and I want it to be a little transparent. So it's mostly water here. Tap my paper towel. I'm going to tap it a couple of times because I want to create some texture-y stuff in here. It's going to be very light, very subtle. And actually through this area there won't be any. And then back through here I'm just going to give it a wiggle and kind of push it back towards the tail. Gonna have a little bit of this coming around. That's why we didn't completely finish our white, because we needed to add this stuff in here. And kind of let it just fade away there. Okay, so that was just a little texture in there, not a whole lot. We're going to go back to our flat brush. Goodness, got a frog in my throat this morning. And I want to thin some of this yellow. And we're going to wash it over some of our white spots down here, because these spots will stay more yellow. Not all of them, but the majority of them. So all of this through here will be a little more yellow. We'll still see those spots. And we can go over those lines that we just put on as long as they're dry. Now this one right here, I don't want all of it to become yellow, so I'm just going to do half of it. And pull a little bit more out. I want to brighten up through here with a little bit of this brighter yellow. Just put a little bit, make it a little brighter, because this area of the fish is super bright, super bright. I don't know why it didn't go back out. I just did mostly this area here. Okay, you still want to be able to see your wavy stuff that you put in, so if you can't see it, you might have to put it back in after you apply this yellow. And then come down this way a little bit. These white spots that we put in here will become a very soft yellow. Okay. Oh, I want to do that over the eye too, because this white on the eye is not going to stay white. We want it to be yellow. But we needed that white foundation first. So we'll just wash some yellow over the eye. While that's wet, I'm going to get a little bit of the side load of vermilion. And I'm going to put a little bit right through here in the eye. A little bit bolder of a line here. And just tap a little bit up through here. Okay. Let's go ahead with the vermilion and brighten up outside of the eye. Make sure we keep our eye round. Go ahead and brighten this up. These areas are going to be really bright. I'm going to take some red into some of these areas. I've just got a corner load of vermilion. Bring this down. I want a little bit up through here. We're putting in our dark color here, so some of this will be covered up, but we can begin our darker colors with just a side load. This is a little bit more than a wash that we did earlier, so it's got more paint in it, so it's a little more pigmented. Go around my white areas, which I'm going to darken up in just a minute. We still want it to be a soft color, so that's why we're side loading, so we can take the water edge and soften out if we need, along with our fingers, and just create some beautiful color going in here. Down along this edge, we don't have to worry, that's all going to be dark. This is going to be, I'm going to come in and put some red in here, but we want to layer with some orange first. So let's put some here. And put some underneath this area here. Kind of goes right there. Through here. This is the vermilion. You could also use the Paragon orange to add some of this color in. Just kind of go around your fish, and you can kind of put this really wherever you want it, but and this is going to have some red coming into it and some dark color down here. We're just creating right now just some orange values in here. Need a little bit more water. Just a little side load. We're going to do this, and then we're going to brighten up our white areas. We might go in and put our dark areas in around the outer edges first. That way when we put our whites in, we don't have to come back and redo it. Now I do want a little bit of this orange to carry up onto the face, or the upper part of the head, whatever this is. Not worried too much about getting it on my white right now, because I'm going to be adding another layer on there. Alright, let's go. Oh, that's the mouth. We don't want to actually go on the mouth, although we're going to be painting it dark, but we want some orange out here outside of the mouth. Okay, a little bit under this, and I'm going to just tap a little bit of orange through here. Don't have to make it solid, just give it a little bit of color. And I'll take a little bit up through here. Alright, we've got some good start with adding a little bit of this orange through here, so we may need to darken up a couple of places through here, but let's get some of our darker color around the outer edge. So we can intensify our white areas. So that has a good amount of that orange in there. Let's go ahead and get a second layer of white in our white areas here. And we want to get this done so that we can spatter or splatter, however you pronounce it, on here. So I may go off camera and do this because this is just repetitive of what we did earlier, only I'm just putting a second coat on to darken all these areas, or brighten them, making them more opaque. Your shapes do not matter. They do not have to be the same shape as mine. So, you know, again, mine, I tried to follow what I drew on here, but my washes of color kind of covered them up a little bit, so didn't get my lines, my white areas on here probably exactly like the line drawing, but there's not going to be any right or wrong here, so it just needs these white areas coming onto the fish for these bright colors. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but I kind of curved that around and took it down the edge of the front of the fish there. So we do want our second coats to be nice and crisp, the edges, so make sure you're doing that. Add a little water to your paint, clean water if you need some water. Okay, so just continue on, and like I said, I am going to go off camera and do these. Just remember up here on the front ones, this one kind of V's and goes this way, because it kind of starts the edge of the head here. My first layer, when I put it on, I didn't worry too much about the shape. I just kind of got the paint on there. So now you want to worry a little bit more about how the lines go. And this is just a little white area here. And your area around the eye, I'm going to do this one here for you because you want it to kind of be thin as it gets to the mouth there. Make that just a little bit thicker there because I think it would be a little bit more appealing. And they can be smooth little bump outs on them. They can be sharp. Okay, and just fill in. I'm using white. I've not really thinned my white down. It's pretty fresh because I want this to be really opaque. So with this layer, I haven't really thinned my paint. I've just made sure that my brush is wet. Okay. And don't go over the areas that we turned yellow, okay? Those need to stay yellow. So these areas where we added white down in here, but we painted yellow over it, don't put the white over them. They need to stay yellow. And I keep saying I'm going to go off camera and finish this, but I don't want the video to be super long, and we still have a few steps here. Okay, so let me do these few down here. I've got a couple at the top to do up here, and then I'm going to come down and finish those. Alright. Okay, I've put some burnt umber out on my palette now, right here. And so I'm going to keep my round brush here. I want to dampen the eye. Not super wet, but damp, so that it thins the paint a little bit when I put it on there. This paint is incredibly thick, so I'm going to have to thin it a little bit anyway. And we're going to paint the pupil in. Try and keep its shape. I want it darker on this edge, so I'm going to wash my brush out and just use that water that I put down on there if it hasn't dried, and bring that out to a little bit lighter. A little bit more paint here. So it's going to be dark at the right side. My goodness, this paint is super incredibly thick. Dark at that side. I'm going to wipe my brush off and then just kind of pity pat pull that out, have it a little bit lighter. I'm definitely going to have to redo that dark side because it was so thick. I just kind of removed it. So I'll let that dry, and while it's drying we're going to do the spattering again. So this is where you want to have a brush that has water in it to remove any. Let me wide angle out. We're going to be using this burnt umber color that we just used in the eye. So again, I'm going to be using my rake brush, and let me thin down some of this burnt umber. That is incredibly thick. Goodness sakes. Alright. I'm going to touch my paper towel and remove a little bit of that moisture off of it, but not a lot of it. Oh, I don't want to use that brush. That's my clean up my spots brush. I want to concentrate a lot of this right here where the mouth is going to be. So I'm going to tap. Oh, that's way too thick. Get big globs like that, not enough water. Alright, reload it with a little bit more in there. There we go. I didn't think it was going to come off at all. So I want to concentrate it right here where the mouth is, okay? Let me clean up because this is going everywhere. We're going to be painting the mouth in with this color. I think I have still a little bit too much water in there. Okay, so let's move up the forehead a little bit, up the face a little, and we're going to go ahead and spatter over our white areas. That's why we wanted to get those on. We're going to come out here to the body and add a little bit of this burnt umber. Put some down here. I know we put that burnt sienna on there before, and now we're using burnt umber. This is a darker color. Okay, I'm going to put a little bit here. Well, maybe not. I concentrated in that one area. And now I'm going to take a minute and clean up before this dries, because this will dry very quickly. It's acrylic paint. It's thin layers, so it'll dry pretty darn quick. Okay, and then I'm just going to move up into some of the areas up here. We're going to add some blue spatter up here. I'm going to spatter a little bit harder so I can make some bigger drops on here. I want to remove it off of the eye. I mean, it's okay if a few get in there. Really want concentrated amount down there. So this spatter kind of goes everywhere, but this fish has a lot of spots on it. Okay, let me see if I've got enough through here. Looks pretty good through there. a little bit more through here. Alright, time to clean up. That was a lot of spattering. I think I got it all over my computer. Now, if you want your spatter to stay in the background, that's perfectly fine, because it's not like the ocean doesn't have stuff floating around in it. Okay, I think I'm pretty happy with that spatter. So I think I will rinse this brush out. And I'm going to apply a second coat onto my eye here. Use some of this thinner paint and paint that in, keeping it darker at the left side or the right side, and just a little bit lighter on that other, on the left side. Okay, I've got spatter everywhere. Take a second to clean it up while that dries. We're going to use some more burnt umber, so I'm going to have to put some more out on my palette here. Okay, let's add a little bit of this burnt umber. Oh, I didn't get some fresh out here. On here, and then we're going to be spattering with some blue. Put a little bit of black out. As soon as I find my black, there it is, carbon black. Don't need much of this. Oh, or you do. You do. That really came out quickly. Much more than what I wanted, and of course I can't put it back in the bottle. So I'm going to take my chisel blender brush, my short chisel brush, and a little bit of black in there just to darken it a little tiny bit. And I'm going to go right along the edge of this eye right here. So this is burnt umber and a little bit of black. Stay off of the eye if possible. I'm not doing a good job of it right now. I want it to kind of fade away at the top, so I just want it the sharpest at the front of the eye here. A little bit of a sharp line there. Okay. All right. Now, I think before I paint on the lips, I'm going to spatter with our next spattering color, which is going to be ultramarine blue. We can spatter with some any of our blues that we used. I used, you can use some teal green in there, that would be pretty. Some cerulean blue. I'll just put a little bit of each one of them out here, and we'll see what we like. Okay. All right, let's get our spatter brush here. I'm going to thin the ultramarine down, some water. Now this you won't have to clean up in the background because it's not going to matter. Make sure I have a damp brush in case I get it somewhere I don't want it. Okay, and then we're going to concentrate this up through here. A little bit of that moisture out. And this is going to be up through here. especially in those white areas. So I'm just going to keep tapping over those white areas right through here. I got a little bit down in this one. Alright, so here's the thing. I don't want it in my orange areas. So damp brush, wipe it out. This will stay wet for a little while, so you've got some time to clean it up. We want this to just be on the white areas. Mostly. The brown we kind of wanted, you know, a little bit everywhere, but the blue we want to kind of control it a little bit more. Okay, there's a little bit of spattering right there on that white area right there. That's going to take me forever to get some on it. So some of the blue went out past. You can leave that or clean it up, your choice. Okay, I want to make sure there's no more blue spatter that I have to put on here. Now if you don't like it in your background, you can just smooth it into the background or leave it. Could be little bubbles around the fish. Okay, our fish is coming along. It's looking really good. Okay. I think we're done with that. Oh, I just flung water everywhere. Okay. Get that little bit of water off of there. Got big drops of water. Goodness. We want that blue to get dry, so while it's drying, I'm going to go back down to the eye and take my round brush. Okay, I'm going to take some white. Now you can use a detail liner if you don't feel very good doing this with a round brush. I'm going to take my white and yellow and mix a little bit of that. I'm going to thin it down with some clean water, just a little bit. I'm going to be up on the very tip of this brush. You know how we put some light color around this earlier? Well, I've kind of lost some of that, so if you've lost yours, we want some of this around the pupil. And this is just a bright yellow. So put it around the pupil. We'll put a little bit out here. Kind of keeping the shape of the eye nice. And that will kind of soften in there as well. I do want a little bit more of the orange in the eye, so I'm just going to stay with this round brush and put a little bit of wash of it down in there. Don't want those two to connect, but I want it definitely darker on the lower part of the eye. And down here a little bit around the eye. So while that's drying up there, you can see if any places need some attention here. I think I'm going to mix a little orange and yellow together. I need this to be a little more opaque out here. I went out past my lines a little bit. Okay, looking good. Looking really good. Alright, I see some white spots that I missed again. I can see my line here. So this one's going to be a brighter white, so not completely totally bright, so we'll just let that one kind of fade down in there. Okay, so that's got our spattering on there. Let's go ahead and work on the mouth now. Now the mouth we're going to paint in with some burnt umber, which I'm going to try and thin some of that down. And we've got his upper lip and the lower lip here. A little bit outside the lines. Clean that up. I'm going to add a little bit of black to that. I really need that to be more opaque, and the burnt umber is not 100% opaque. So that top area is going to be here, and I want to make it irregular. So just kind of pity pat that. Let's see if I can zoom you in here. And then we're going to have a light area in between, and then the lower lip kind of looks like it pouts out this way. Okay. So we're going to take some of that yellow that we have on our palette, get the water out of my brush, mix a little bit of white with it. And we're going to tap a little bit of this through here, especially right through here, a little bit through here. We'll come back and wash some orange over that, I think. A little bit of highlight there. And then I want the burnt umber to be more spattery through here, so I've got that big area that I created there. I don't know if I can take some of that down or not, but let me try, because I put a big huge spatter right there. Okay, that took it down almost to the canvas there, so you have to be careful. You have to be careful when you're doing that. I can put some orange in there now. Needs a little orange through here, and then I can come back with that burnt umber and do some little dots in through here. And that looks much better. Take some orange and yellow and kind of touch up down through here. Alright, I'm going to take a little bit of white now and brighten. And I want a little bit of yellow. Tap in here. I need to break it up right through here. I don't want the lip to be so structured, so I'm just using some yellow and white and orange to reshape the lip. So we see just a little bit of the bottom one. The top one we see more. We do need a little bit more right through here. So I think that will do good for the lip. I'm going to put a little bit of highlight in the eye here. Just a little bit of yellow in there for a highlight. Okay. Okay, I think that will finish the mouth up and the eye. I think they both look pretty good. Alright, let's move on to the black areas on the fish. Alright, let me wide angle out. We're going to brighten our area down here with some red. And I'm just going to take a flat brush. I'm going to side load it because that will just be easiest to apply it, I think. And then down in through these areas, this is more of a red color. So we'll just put some in here, keeping our white areas very sharp here. We can have a little bit over here. And then on this side as well. We're going to have black down in here. It's going to cover up down here, but we want to bring this red up. And just soften out at the end there. A little bit here. Take the water edge and soften, because I've got a side load, so it's not tons of red here. A little bit through here. This is a little fin thing that comes off, and we'll shape and define that after we get our black in. But we'll have some red kind of around it. And then we've got some down here. Again, the black will cover up some of this, and we may have to reshape our white areas in there. But that has the red areas a little bit bolder. And I think this one I'm going to bring up a little bit. Okay, we'll get our dark areas in and see if we need to do any adjusting there. Alright, we've already got a lot of black on our palette here, so it's going to be good for us to use here. So I'm going to add a little bit of water. I'm going to use my chisel brush here, and we're going to paint all of this area up in through here black, and then we're going to come back in with our other colors and add them in. And sometimes it's a little hard to paint over black, but we'll work it out. I'm going to try and keep this, you know, a little bit not quite so precise as I come up this back area. A little bit of a jagged line there. And it goes all the way out to the line that I put there. Add a little bit of water into my paint. Okay, I'm going to go back to this direction because I need to pull some of this paint now. And we'll start kind of going around our white areas. Let me define the outer edge because that's going to help. And then we're just going to go from that edge and pull some paint. Of course, we want to go around our white shape here a little bit. And then some of this we can just pull out. Now you can do this with a round brush, or you can use the chisel edge of the brush like I'm using. We're going to have to put probably a second layer of black in here, I've thinned mine down pretty good. So if yours is not as thin, you probably won't need as much of a second layer as me. Alright, a little bit of water in my paint, and then A little bit as it comes down here. You won't be seeing as much. It's kind of going around the fish here, so we won't be seeing as much as it goes around there. Okay. All right. On the tail here, we brought the yellow out a little bit, but we're going to start here and pull some strokes out all the way. I'm going to wipe my brush off because I do want to keep you on camera for one thing. Make this a little bit more loose and messy through here, irregular. Okay, that's a good start for the tail. And then down through here, a little bit more sharp on the outer edge and then looser as we come out into the fish. Just using the chisel edge of the brush and just kind of flicking up. Okay. Down through here. And then a little bit here. A little bit through here. We're going to be adding some, looks like some more red in here. Through here. Okay. So now you can apply a second layer of black on here. I'm going to go off camera and do that because that can get very repetitive and tedious to just watch the same thing over and over again. But I'm just going to start back up at the top and work my way down a second coat. I won't need as much paint because I'm just kind of filling in where some of the canvas is still showing through that I don't want to see. So that's what we're going to do. Not making our areas any bigger or pulling out our strokes any farther. We're just going to get a little bit more black on there. Okay, I want a little bit brighter highlight in that fish's eye. Like right here. I'm going to use white here and here in the fish's eye. And a little bit out here. I think that's going to define the eye a little bit better. Paint. I'm going to go around the eye a little bit with some of this orange. I can tell what side I'm on. Try not to lose that shape of your eye. Okay, that white looks better in there. So the yellow is still good to use in there, the yellow and white mix. Or no, we just use straight yellow and then just come back with a little bit of white. Okay. That gets the little shine on the eye, so. Okay, so now we need to add some dots and strokes and streaks kind of through the black area of the fish. So I'm going to go with my round brush and grab some white to begin with. And I want to create some really fine little areas in just a few places. We'll be coming over and putting some different color on here. On these white areas, but I want them to be very thin lines that come up to some of these white areas. And they all come down. To the edge here. Quick little second stroke on them. We're going to do the same to the top up there. Okay, so we're going to pull, first of all, any of these that need reshaped, go ahead and do them. It's okay if spattering is on them, and we're going to add a few in between. This is white. Come out into our yellow area a little bit. Through here, some thin lines. I definitely need water in my paint to thin it down. Use a detail liner if you do not feel comfortable using a round brush. These lines we just want for placement. Okay. Few through there. We're going to come to the tail, and we're going to put just a few in here. Alright, any of these that you need to brighten, just quickly go back over them. It's very easy. Stay up on the tip. You've got some water mixed in with your paint, so you've got a flowy consistency of paint. We're going to be adding some color on top of these, so they're not going to stay this color. And we do want to come out into the yellow with this stuff a little bit. Down here they're more defined as strong, solid lines, okay? Up here they're a little more loose because we're going to put some color on top of them. Okay, we're going to take our blue and we're going to mix the cerulean and the ultramarine blue. It's going to mostly be cerulean though. And we're going to start washing over these areas up here. Might add a little bit of that teal in there because it looks like there's a slight teal tint. So let's thin that down. Let's go cerulean and teal because I think that will make a really nice color. And we're going to wash this. Alright, we can come right over that one there and wash this into some of our areas of white, especially the ones that we just created Those are the ones we definitely want to see a little bit more blue and not staying white. Go back over them if you need to. On the tail as well. Wash that over those white areas. We want them to become more blue. This is a little bit more where the tail is transparent. And then down here as well, we'll be washing this over. These areas that go all the way to the bottom, all these lines that we added, we're going to put this color on here. We get just a little tint of it here, and then through here we'll get a little bit. Okay. Bring this up a little bit onto this. You can add some spatter down in this area if you would like to of the blue. I did not do that, so I'm going to try and tap a little bit of some dots down in through here. Try and use the ultramarine blue. It will show up a little bit more. Don't want them all in a row or ginormous, so don't get carried away. Just put a few in there. Make it a little bit washy and irregular. Okay, this one I just want it to come up a little bit higher. Use your finger and blend it out. And let's go back up to the top and see how we're doing up here. I think we need to add a little bit more. This is just a wash of color. This is cerulean blue and teal green. Alright, I'm going to take my angle brush and I'm going to create a float of a sheer color of cerulean blue and teal green. I'm going to add a tiny bit of white to it. Maybe if I can pick some white up. But I want this to be just a sheer color. I really don't want red in it, so let me wipe my brush off there. Okay, so I've just got a nice sheer color. And I want to put the paint edge out here and create a little bit look of a wavy fin. But we still want it to be where we can see through it. To where it looks like we can see through it, I guess I should say. Okay. So I'm going to let that dry because I'm going to have to add a little bit of black along the edge out there. And actually, I'm going to bring some of my black out a little bit more. Into that area. Okay, a little bit more loose like that. Okay, let me dry that real quick. While it's drying, you can see I'm loading a little bit of black with some water in my brush to make a nice sheer color. And this is so I can go out here and create a little bit more of a sheer fin out here. Maybe. It's not showing up on camera, so I'm going to have to go just slightly darker here. Okay. I'm going to add some of that blue back in there because I definitely want to see the blue, so cerulean and teal. A little bit more cerulean. I might add a tiny little bit of white to that. Need it to show up a little bit more. And just pull some strokes in there. Okay. Alrighty, and let's finish these two fins down here. So this one right here, which is kind of hard to see, I'm going to mix some orange and white. And trying to define it a little bit more. Comes out this way. A little bit more orange here. This is very kind of long underneath here. I'm going to take some yellow, and we need some yellow in here where that white was. A little bit more red in here. This is very narrow through here. Bring a little bit of red down here. And grab a little bit of black. And it's a little thin down, so we can kind of outline a little bit here and just be a little bit irregular. And a little bit through here. Okay. I'm just wipe the excess black off because we need some of this black out here. I wiped off too much. We need some of this out here. Just a little bit on the edge of this fin, kind of shaping it. I'm going to go with some orange and clean it up a little bit. We need some yellow. Again, this is where you can go to a very fine detail brush and do this stuff. Okay, this tip out here definitely needs yellow, and this tip here. And a little bit through there. I'm going to grab some white. I better put some fresh out. That's all full of paint. Our fish is almost done. Okay, we're working on this fin here. A little bit of white through here for this fin. Wider up through here, and then this kind of comes up to the end. a lot of paint. Okay. That fin is a little bit hard to define there, but it's there. Let's put a little bit of orange along the edge of it. Some yellow and orange mix, so you're just going to be using all these colors as you see that you need them, where you need them, where you want them, because, you know, again, it's your fish. It's not going to be right or wrong. A little bit of red through here. And a little bit through here. Okay, I think that's going to be okay for that fin as soon as I reapply some white through here. Try that white again. I had way too much water in my brush. There we go. A little bit on the tip here. A little bit of blue. And then any blue areas that you want to darken, you can do that. We got to go up here and finish this area up here. It's not quite done. Alright, so for the upper part up here, we're going to, let me get some more blue out here. We're going to take our, I'm going to use our cerulean blue because it's the brightest blue that we have here. And we're going to put some little dots. Actually, I'm going to have to mix some white with it so I can make it opaque. We'll come back and put some color on top of it, but we're just going to add some little dots all over back here. There's quite a few of them, all different sizes. Goes to about there. And I'm going to put a few white ones in there that I can put yellow on. So we'll have a few white ones in here that we can make yellow. Okay, I'm going to get my Hansa Yellow Medium out because it's a little bit different color of yellow and I want a little variation here. Alright, so we're going to take this color, I'm going to mix just a little bit of white with it. And we're going to create some yellow lines in here. A little bit of yellow and white mix. Don't cover up all your blue stuff. We can come down into the orange with this. Okay. Just a little streaking. I know this is a longer project than I've done for a while, but I think it is just an adorable fish. A little bit of streaking through there. Let's put some through here. And you can go back over them if you want them to be a little bit more opaque or brighter color, which I think is always best unless you're going for a more subtle look. Okay, I'm going to put that white on there just one more time on a couple of these. Alright, so for our blue dots now we can just go in and put some cerulean blue on top of them, preferably without the white. You could pick up some teal green and do a few that are kind of teal as well. So just create your little dots and dabs really wherever you want to have them on here. Okay. If they're not showing up well for you, which mine just absolutely do not look like they're showing up. Oh, I'm going to grab some white that doesn't have yellow in it, and some blue, maybe a little bit of teal, a little more blue, a little more blue. I really want them to be this more cerulean blue, but it needs that white to make them more opaque. I might have to add some ultramarine, get these to show up. So just mix your blues. You definitely want them to show up, so if they're not showing up, you're just going to have to add some white in there. Okay. Alright, for our ones that we made yellow, let's just use this yellow right here and thin some of it down. And we'll just wash some over these white spots right here. And I think that's pretty good for our fish. I think the fish looks done. So I have some decisions to make if I want to make some bubbles coming up, some loose little grasses coming. I really think I want to do some grasses coming up down here. The bubbles I have not decided yet. Alright, I do want to add some other grasses down here, being more closer to us. So I've got some teal green here, and I'm mixing a little bit of burnt umber into it to give it a nice dark green color. I'll wash my brush out, and I think I want to take a little bit of teal and mix some yellow. Make a little bit of a lighter color. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to load my brush all with this dark green, and then just come over and side load into that lighter green. Now I just want to create some tips of grasses down here, so I'm going to keep my brush flat and then give it a twist and let it come up. And it needs to be a little bit brighter. I don't want it to be as bright as that, but and then we're just going to create a few. I want some more brown ones, so let me add a little brown one coming up here. Make them all different thicknesses and shapes just by how much pressure you give on your brush. Some of them can be super thin, and just play around with these colors that you've mixed and bring some of these up. Okay, I'm going to bring a few over here. We're just seeing some tips. That one got a little carried away, I think. So I'm going to take a damp brush and bring it down. Just because it got a little tall. You know, I had an amazing teacher, Marjorie Harris Clark, that told me one time, where your paint goes, that's where it's meant to be. So I try not to go back and change anything, but that was a little bit too close to that. One. So just create some fun stuff down here. You don't have to cover up your other greenery stuff here if you don't want to. If you still want to see it, then leave it. So I'm going to go with a little bit brighter one here. Okay, brought that one up a little bit higher, so I think I'll do the same over here. Bring one up a little bit brighter. Ooh, that's a lot of paint there. Lots of paint. I don't want that much paint. A little more burnt umber, so this one will be a little darker on top. Okay, I think that looks pretty good there. I'm going to wipe my brush out. I've got a ton of paint in it. And I really feel like I need something here. Okay, so that's nice. You can bring these up as high as you want. I wanted to keep them a little more low. I think I do want to put a little bit of yellow on some of them. Too much paint. Still too much paint. I want to have that chisel edge on my brush. So just giving a little bit of lightening so they stand out a little bit better. Okay, that definitely makes it look much better. And that was just teal green, hands of yellow medium, and burnt umber. Mix them, vary them, play around with it. Alright, so now is the point where you want to decide, do you want to have some bubbles coming up your canvas for this fish or not? You don't have to. I think instead of just doing actual bubbles, I'm going to do a bouquet effect in here. Alright, I'm going to create a little bit of a bouquet look in the background, and I want to use the colors that we used within the background, plus some white, plus some glazing medium. Let me grab my glazing medium, and I want to have fresh paint when I do this. So I'm going to put my glazing medium on my palette, and then I'm going to put out some ultramarine blue and some cerulean blue. Those were the two colors that I used in my background. I think I used a little bit of teal in there somewhere, but I'm just going to keep it with the cerulean and the ultramarine. And then of course we need white, which I already have on my palette here. So I'm using a dry domed brush here. Okay, so I would say if you're not sure if you want this look on yours, to varnish your piece with some matte varnish, then try this technique on here. And if you don't like it, you can very, very quickly remove it with a wet paper towel or a baby wipe. Okay, so I'm going to load my brush with some glazing medium. Okay, let me get a fresh paper towel here. I think our fish looks really, really good. He turned out so cute. I know there was a lot of steps to him, but I think he was worth every single one of them. Okay, so I've got glazing medium. So now I'm going to take a little tiny bit of ultramarine blue, and that's a little bit too much. Wipe that off. I'm going to get a little bit of white in there. glazing medium. A little bit more white. Okay, I'm going to tap this on my paper towel because I don't want this to be, you know, super loaded. So bokeh is just little blurs that are in the background. So it could be anything, you know, within the water. It could be bubbles that are going up that we can't quite see. But they are really fun to make. You can make them different sizes. You can overlap them. So this will give a little bit look of maybe some bubbles rising up. I'm going to get a little bit more on my brush. I'm just using small amounts, just barely tickling the surface here, and create them wherever you would like to see them. They are super fun to add to any painting, I think. Let me wide angle out. Helps when you can see it, not quite so on top of it. They can get bigger as they come up, closer to the surface. You can have bubbles, you know, the stuff around your grass, on your fish. Just have fun with it. It's a super, super fun technique. I'm going to mix a little bit more. I'm going to stay with the ultramarine and the white here. I'm using super small amounts of paint. That's quite a bit of paint there. Wipe that off and grab some glazing medium. Oh, got into my teal. More glazing medium. Tap, tap, tap. Remove off of the tip because I don't want a lot of buildup on the tip. And then come back in here. I'm going to put a big one here. I just feel like it needs one there. Okay, what a fun background. Big one here. Let's put another one here. You want to vary how dark some of them are as well, because you don't want them all to be the same value. So a little bit more white in there wouldn't hurt. And create some brighter ones. All different sizes. Don't keep them all the same size. I think that really makes the background look super great. You know, you can kind of get carried away with doing that, but try not to if you can help it. I think that looks really good. Super, super, super cool. So I'm going to wash my brush out. That means I'm not painting anymore because I needed to use it dry, so I'm washing it out. So I'm going to say that's done with the glazing medium part. Okay, I was cleaning up and realized I left one thing off of this fish. So I'm going to take my burnt umber, use a detail liner to get some nice thin lines if you need to. I really want to thin this burnt umber down. Okay, so right here where we have a light area right here, we are going to pull some lines out, and they're fairly long and fairly thin, so a detail liner would probably be best, and they go up. So just some few strokes in there. They are kind of long, so just pull a few up through there. I'm going to remove a little bit of it from this yellow. Some of it can be on there, but you probably don't need as many as I've got on here. I should have grabbed a detail liner. A detail liner will be in my list of brushes, but I did not grab one, so we just want to make sure that that gets on there, not too dark. You know, use some thin down paint so it will all kind of look nice. So that was the last thing we needed to do. That was on the fish, so that is going to be it. So I'm going to move my palette out of the way here, and we're going to get this in better camera shot and take a look at it, see what we think. Is it done? Do you think it's done? Do you like it? I absolutely love this fish. Again, he was a little bit of work, but he was so worth it, so worth it. And I think the bokeh effect in the background just finished it completely. So this was a super fun project, you guys. I hope that you enjoyed it. I know that I loved painting it. It was so much fun, and it turned out beautifully, I think. So I hope that you enjoyed it. Give me a thumbs up. Please like, share, and comment. It really helps me in the YouTube algorithm, and I appreciate you all. Thank you so much, you guys. I can't wait to see you on the next one. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.